I was sitting in having lunch with a friend of mine from high school, this 6 or 7 years ago, who was struggling with his faith and wasn't sure if he was really ready to follow the Lord. And the main holdup was that he was trying to do things the right way, trying to be a good father, trying to be a good husband. But he was looking around and seeing these people who were not doing things the right way and who to his eye were prospering, who had more money than him, who were more comfortable than him, whose marriages seemed to be better, children seemed to be better. And he didn't understand how, if he was doing the right thing, God would allow him to endure more difficulty. And so I gave him this illustration that the Lord gave in the moment. I had 2 sons at the moment. I have more than that now. But I want you to imagine my 2 children, Naomi and Cohen, my younger 2, come to me in a few days after Halloween has happened. And Naomi comes first and says, Dad, would it be okay if my dinner tonight was that chocolate that I got for Halloween? That bucket that we've got sitting in the cabinet, if that was just what I had for dinner? And I said, of course not, Naomi, that's insane. No, you're going to eat your carrots, you're going to eat your celery, and you're going to go to bed at a reasonable hour. And then Cohen comes, standing right next to her. She's still standing there. She's weeping, of course, because she can't imagine why I could possibly say no to such a request. But Cohen comes in just a few moments later and says, hey, Dad, would it be okay if that bucket of chocolate that I've got in there for Halloween, could I have that for dinner? And I said, of course. Would that make you happy, Cohen? And Cohen says, it would make me happy. And I said, well, I want you to be happy. Here's the bucket of chocolate for dinner. And they sit next to each other, and Cohen eats his chocolate, and Naomi eats her carrots. Years later, Naomi comes to me and says, hey, Dad, I've noticed that Miss Wallace, who's our neighbor across the street, I've noticed that she pays her rent every month in cash, and she puts it in the mailbox on the first of the month. And the guy doesn't come pick it up until the next day. Would it be okay if I just, on the first of the month, went and got her money and made it my own money? And I say, Naomi, the absurdity of that request, of course you cannot do that. You don't know how hard Miss Wallace works for that money. She needs that money to care for her husband and care for her children. She needs that. That's stealing. Of course you can't do that. You're grounded for even asking such a thing. Cohen then comes up and says, hey, Dad, I've noticed Miss Wallace's money. Would it be okay? And I said, Cohen, would it make you happy if you did that? And he said, Dad, it really would. And I said, Cohen, I want you to be happy. Go ahead, go take Miss Wallace's money. Years later, I use my oldest 2 now because we're getting about to that point. Jerry comes to me and says, hey, Dad, would it be okay if when I turn 16, if I get, and he has asked this, if I get that new Corvette that just came out? And I say, Jerry, first of all, you'd be dead before you got out of the driveway. You couldn't handle it in reverse, much less drive. There's no chance, and there's no chance I'm bankrupting the family to give you a car. You will not drive a car that's more expensive than the one that your mother drives, probably more than my car, but not one than your mother drives. You will drive this 1978 Pinto, and you'll love every second of it. And then Alanis comes to me and says, hey, Dad, would it be okay, Corvette? And I say, Alanis, would it make you happy if you had that Corvette? And he says, Dad, it really would. And I say, Alanis, I want you to be happy. Debt for the rest of my life is fine. Here's the Corvette. Now, here's the question. In the case of the first 2, with Naomi and Cohen, which one am I doing a better job of loving? Okay? And same thing with Lance and Jerry. Which one am I doing a better job of loving? In every case, it's the one I said no to. Right? In every case. But now I want you to imagine. I want you to imagine that moment where little sweet Naomi, who I very rarely say no to, little sweet Naomi is in front of me, and Cohen is in front of me as well. And they both ask me for the bucket of chocolate. And I give Cohen the bucket, and I give Naomi a plate of carrots. In their minds, right, in the 6-year-old mind, in the 3-year-old mind, who do they think I'm loving more? Right? Who do they think I'm loving better? Naomi thinks the injustice, right? The injustice. He loves Cohen more than he loves me, and there's no argument about it, right? If her 6-year-old friends try to convince her differently, she'll have nothing of it. No, you weren't there. He gave him the chocolate, and he wouldn't give it to me, right? Because she's 6, and she's an idiot, right? Because she doesn't know anything yet. She's a child. And so here's what's so wonderful. Right? Very often we should ask ourselves why we find things humorous, because it teaches us something about something very deep in us. That is so humorous to think, because you know better than that, right? You know that I'm actually loving her better by saying, no, eat your carrots, than I would be if I said, of course, I want you to be happy right now in this moment. That in fact, the worst thing I could do for my child in each of those moments is to say, I want you to be happy right now. And yet, when it comes to looking to our Heavenly Father, so often we become 3-year-olds that says, He just doesn't love me. How could he not give me that thing? How could he not give me that person? How could he force me to eat carrots? How in the world? So often we find ourselves thinking like children when it comes to our life with the Father. Instead of thinking like we do as adults, that very often carrots are good for you. That very often saying no is the most loving thing the Father could do for you. And so it may seem like God is treating you more poorly. He may be loving you in that sense better and treating you like his child.